I got comfortable at story time. So I think where I want to start was, first of all, the name of the Women's Project wasn't the Women's Project. The name of it was Arkansas Women's Training Project. The first idea for it was that instead of making a project that did all this different kind of, pieces of work, that there were women organizing around the state that needed like technical assistance and help in whatever they were doing. So it was always take the lead of what other people are doing, and then offer whatever help you can with that. And so people were creating battered women's shelters. People were doing sometimes little bitty projects, sometimes other things. And so it was a matter of having we had some visitors, and there were five visitors who were from different parts of the state. And so they were organizing there, and they were also going out from their counties and helping other women in terms of how they were organizing. So we traveled all the time, trying to just do what we could to help people to get their feet on the ground and encourage people to organize, which I think is still really needed, to say to people, you can do this. You can do something in Dermont, you can do, which is one of the places where we did something, you can do something in Northeast Arkansas, you can do something in Northwest, you can do something everywhere. And so that was the beginning of it. And then the VISTA, Reagan came in, cut the VISTA program out. And so we were doing all of that under this idea that Reagan had come into office and it was going to be really different. Jimmy Carter was going out, and everybody knew how Reagan had come in. He came in as a right-wing candidate, and there was going to be attack on social issues. There was going to be attack on economics and workers, and so that's what he did. He first went for workers, and then he took every issue that people were concerned about, like crime, drugs, schools, welfare, and racialized those. He said, basically kept giving the message that it's drugs, that's the best black people. Welfare, it's the welfare queen. It's the black people. And it was black and brown, all the way through that. And so what he did was work to increase people's resentment and say, you don't want to pay taxes then, because your taxes are going to these no good people who are just taking your money. That was what you got from the welfare queen, is that well-to-do black woman driving Cadillacs and having all those children so she can get all your money, through your taxes. And so they started the anti-taxation movement that today has now made us broke. States don't have any money. They're cutting back on all the things that Tuffy was talking about. So that was the climate that we were organizing in. So we were still under the umbrella of the United Methodist Church, and we were setting out on that goal that we were going to take risk. And as we began to organize into the Women's Project from the Arkansas Training Project, because we didn't have the arms, to go out and do what we needed to do and have the capacity to do it, that we began reorganizing as the Women's Project. And what we thought would be helpful is if we took on issues that other people were scared to take on. That if we would be there on the things that other people thought were they would ruin their reputations if they did it, or that it was just too dangerous for them to do it. And so we were always setting our agenda in that way, but the ways that we thought that we would best organize, because we were determined that we wouldn't deal with all women. There was not going to be any issue of race. There wasn't going to be issues of age. There wasn't going to be issues of what we call sexual orientation at the time. Now we talk more about it in terms of gender and sexuality. There were going to be any issues of religion. Everybody was going to have a place where they could bring their issues. So we were determined to do that. And we felt like you couldn't talk about sexism unless you talked about racism. That you absolutely had to do that. That the two, the way we thought about it, where they were intertwined, just like that. So we said, okay, we are on the progressive left side of things. We're going to keep that alive in Arkansas, no matter what it takes. And that's what it means for us to take risk. And by left, what we mean in that is that we thought that we wanted to go to the root cause of issues. You know, we didn't want to talk about the surface. We didn't want to talk about how to get to everybody to be have middle class values, which at that time, and we still do think of as white values, suburban values. You know, when we think about the norm in this country, everybody's trying to merge people into, you know, one set of values, which always leaves poor people out, always leaves people of color out, always leaves queer people out. You know, so that's the way we set sail, and we thought that the way you would, if you're going to work with all kinds of women, what would be the things that might unite them in terms of, you know, because you have to focus in. You can't go, even though we were multi-layered, you can't go just everywhere. You have to have something that pulls you together and that opens the door for everybody. And we thought the two things that most affected women were violence. We hardly knew a woman who didn't have violence of some sort in her life. I mean, which is a horrible thing, and it still is true, that if we told those stories of violence right now, all of us would probably have some form of violence that we could report. Excuse me. The other one was economics. We thought those are the two things that even if you were a middle-class woman or an upper middle-class woman, if you were battered by your husband and forced out of the home, most women didn't have their own independent money. And certainly, if you know, in just about, or your boyfriend, you know, that women didn't have and still don't have full economic independence. So those are the two things that we thought that we would do. We go down that road. So then we had to deal with the issue of, if you believe that we have a history of racism in this country that goes from its beginnings, but particularly from the development of slavery onward, and has been the major defining piece of this country, how are you going to develop an organization that works against that through its structure? So that was a big question for us, you know, to think about, to think about how that would work. So if you've got this history of racism, and you're sitting in the middle of it in Arkansas or wherever you are, you know, pretty much, you know, as you know, wherever you are, anywhere in the country, you're sitting in the middle of it. You know, we no longer think that, oh, it's only in the South, or, you know, that kind of thing. How would we be able to be true to a commitment that we were going to eliminate both sexism and racism? And so we said we had to do that through our structure. So the structure that we designed was that we didn't believe that equality was 50-50. We don't think that 50% white people and 50% women of color makes equality. We don't think that, you know, 50% immigrants and 50% people who have citizenship, that's not equality when you bring a room together. That you have to up the numbers in terms of those who have been the most oppressed. So our commitment then was at the Women's Project was to work always to have majority women of color on staff, and always have majority women of color on board, and always have the board chair to be a woman of color. And then we